Hello and welcome to the Huddle. Liam Santamaria back with you as the regular season is wrapped. It all came down to the final day. Incredible Sunday of NBL hoops. Melbourne and Perth in that almighty struggle to see who might finish sixth. And now we've got our top six and we're ready for the play-in games. So what we need to do is glance forward, what these play-in games are going to look like. Cairns and Tassie, New Zealand are through, and Perth are making their way down to play against Southeast Melbourne. So to help me with that, one of the highest IQ players in the league, a future NBL head coach, no doubt about it, Jason Cadee from the Brisbane Bullets. So sit back, relax. Up next, Jason Cadee. Jace, what's happening, mate? Good to see you.
Thanks for having me along, mate. Pleasure.
Silly Sunday? Not a mad Monday for you guys. A silly Sunday yesterday. Wrapped it up with the group. How was that?
It was good, mate. Obviously, we went a day early, just being on a Sunday, and there's a few engagements we got with awards dinners and stuff this week, so it made sense to do it on the Sunday, and it was nice. Obviously, as everyone knows, we've had a very up and down year, a lot of roller coaster. I guess just the way it's all gone. So to as a group just get together, we organise a little boat and enjoy each other's company and kind of just be in that setting is sometimes nice. And it was good to really confirm that our group really got along well. We just never got a really good crack at it to figure out who we were. And that was confirmed, I think, in the way we played the back end of the year. And then yesterday as well just confirmed that even more.
There's always a pretty good sort of dress-up scene that goes on with the Brisbane Bullets on that day. Who was best on ground in that regard?
Yeah, we tried to have a discussion of that. I guess the one, Mad Monday for me, it goes back to me when I started with Gold Coast. You had some veterans, Stephen Hoare, Wertho, Peach, James Harvey. You had a lot of guys, and so it was taken very seriously with the dress up. Right. Everyone was about it. You had to have a good dress up and so on. So it's kind of been instilled in me since my rookie years. Obviously, the ultimate would be doing a Mad Monday after you win a championship. I think that would be the greatest day I ever have. So, but I did get taught early on, no matter what you do in your season, there will be a Mad Monday, whether you come last or first. And so the boys put in a good effort yesterday. I was quite happy with everyone. Everyone showed up, put in a bit of effort to find a good costume and come and be creative. So I couldn't single out one single person, but I think everyone had a great day, and it was nice to just hang out one last time as a group because, as we all know, everything changes year to year.
How are you feeling? I imagine you took it pretty easy yesterday because you've been dealing with some concussion symptoms, delayed onset concussion symptoms. How are you feeling, firstly, and can you talk me through like how that all played out and how what you started experiencing?
Yeah, yesterday was an interesting one because I'm kind of at the stage where I guess I don't currently have a concussion, but I still have symptoms. And so it's kind of day to day, it's on feel. So it's kind of the classic, have one beer and see how you feel after it. Have a water and then just kind of get an idea. So that just sums up basically how, in that regard, that's how it went. And then also in go for a walk, see how you feel. Go for a jog, see how you feel. And so it started, I don't know if maybe you were even commentating the game. At the back end of the Southeast Melbourne game, the very last player copped an elbow to the back of the head.
Right.
And I wasn't knocked out, but it rattled me, it rocked me. And then it took me a bit to just kind of get my bearings. And then I remember everything. I went and shook hands, and then their doctor came and spoke to me. And I said, look, I got a bump. It rocked me. Everything went dark for a little bit, but I feel good now. Like I remember everything all good. And then after the game, I started to feel a bit nauseous and have a bit of a headache. And so I thought, oh, maybe it's just a fair hit. It's got me. And then kind of woke up, traveled the next day and felt okay. Did a concussion test the following morning on the Wednesday morning. So I didn't train, but I didn't pass that. And then we played Thursday against Adelaide. I did another fitness test, felt all great. Game starts. I think it was my first sub. I started the game pretty well, so no one believed me when I said I didn't feel great. But I started to feel a bit dizzy and lightheaded, which is not uncommon. I've had some things go on this year with my stomach, so sometimes I can get nauseous in games. I thought I had an ulcer, which I had years ago. So there was a bit of like, is it that, is it not? And then as most know, I kind of set out of that game. We travel Friday to Wollongong. I feel fine Friday. Saturday, same thing. Shoot around, feel fine. The moment the game starts in Wollongong, about a minute in, I get a raging headache, and it just persisted the whole game. I couldn't get rid of it, and then it persisted for the next few days. And so I've never dealt with a concussion, but I felt something was definitely off. And then for basically 2 weeks now, I've just been trying to go multiple days where I feel all right, and I've struggled to do it. So it's definitely been something for me. I'm a very much tape it up and I'll play through it kind of guy. It's
Yeah.
how I've done my whole career. I believe I just personally feel like I can tough stuff out, and I have a pretty good pain threshold, and this has definitely not been one of those. It's really shown me that the brain is very powerful, and if it doesn't like something, especially with the headaches and things like that, it really tells you quickly, and it's not something you can mess around with.
Concussion situations and issues have been a real thing this season in particular. You know, we're seeing it become more, people understand more and more about it across the world, and so it's becoming more prevalent and better care provided in situations like this in sports all around the world, but particularly in the NBL. I mean, Shea Yilly's concussion issues this season have been a real worry for him in a big way. I mean, 3 times over the course of the year now, and so that starts to become really troubling. But you throw Dave Barlow into that mix as well, what you've been dealing with. I'm sure I'm missing 1 or 2 others. And, people have been really missing games, but also been really experiencing like tough things. Now, do you think what you're experiencing, a few years back before we were thinking concussion, what do you think people would be thinking in your situation?
Yeah, see, that's the hard part. Now, I guess that's how I treated it when it first happened. And funny you speak about Shay. He's after that Wollongong game, he was one of the first people I messaged because I was trying to figure out if that's exactly what it was. And I guess it's one of those things, until you really go through it, you don't understand it. Like I spoke to you earlier, and I said when Shay first was going through it, I kind of asked him how he was going, and he said, "Yeah, I'm just struggling a little bit at times, but I think I'll be back in the next week or 2." And then about a month went past and Shea still wasn't playing. And I kind of was like, I wonder what's going on, why he's not playing. And now I kind of have an idea, because you start to, like, throughout the week, in my mind, I was like, I'll play against New Zealand the last game, 100%. And all of a sudden I start to try and jog. And then I jog for 3 minutes and I start to get a headache. And it's just those things where it's like, you just can't, you try to do things and it hits you so quickly that you're almost like, no, I can't do this anymore. And it actually debilitates you where you can't get out of it. So it's kind of one of those things that I guess until you really go through it, you don't understand it, and so on. So it's been an interesting one for me to go through and experience it. And I'll probably have more of an understanding now because of that than if I didn't ever have it.
Yeah, right. All right. Hey, listen, we're going to dive into the play-in situation and preview these upcoming games in just a moment. But one more thing on that. How is it affecting you on the day-to-day in your kind of quality of life right now? Now, it's been how many weeks since the hit in that Southeast Melbourne game?
3 weeks Monday.
3 weeks.
Which is
now,
today. Yeah, Monday.
With you, with your family, spending time with your kid, like how is it impacting you right now?
I've started to be better the last probably 4 days. I had more, I guess, longer moments of feeling better. I've kind of said to someone the other day, I just want to feel normal again, because I'll go, say, a period where I think I feel great. Like even the other day, I had a treatment thing done. I went and seen a guy up here that a few of us have been seeing, and I got home and I was like, I'm going to mow the lawns, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do all this activity. And then I wake up the next morning and I feel average again. I feel lightheaded or dizzy. And so I've been trying to string together just a thing. And I just said to Sobes, it's probably the best 24-hour period I've had since basically the Wollongong game, so 2 weeks. But it was rough, especially with the kids. They don't understand. And Louis 3, he wants to shoot, he wants to run around, he wants to go do this. And kind of saying that even Jazz, like, she obviously needs help with the kids. And I just need to go. I'm going to go 24 hours where I'm just going to lay in bed and you're not going to see me. I'm going to try and keep it as low key as possible, because they try and tell you to shut it down but still keep stuff light. And so trying to manage those things is obviously difficult. But I don't know. The other part is there's a real, like, exact, like, this, and this will help you.
Right.
That's the one thing I haven't really got. I think there's ways of going about it. There's ideas about it, but it's no real strict, like, where I feel like you do your ankle and it's like, okay, we're going to go this, we're going to go this, we're going to go that, and you're back on the train. Where this is like try this. We'll see how you handle it. And if it works, then we'll keep going along. And so you try that, and then it doesn't work, and you go, well, hang on a second. Is this going to go away? And so I've had a bit of those questions the last little bit. But the last few days, I've started to feel more longer periods of feeling myself and normal and not feeling like there's a daze or lightheaded and things like that. And so it's definitely nice to feel like I'm coming out the other side, but I'm very much rolling around with everything crossed, hoping that I'm truly coming out the other side of it.
Jeez, that's rough, and it's really interesting. I mean, this is one hit. This is not like multiple hits to the head that you've had over a period of time.
I've never really had, not like this. I've had knocks where you go, oh, maybe I'm concussed or whatever. But as I said, I did 2 concussion tests, passed them flying colours.
Right.
So it wasn't like the concussion test was a read on, oh, you're struggling. It was more just my symptoms, and especially I went to watch the New Zealand game the first time we played them. I've lost track of time because so many games, but last week, Thursday, and I walked in. I went to a function. I was standing at the function. I thought I was going to pass out because I was getting lightheaded. So I went and sat down, had some water. The game started, and the inner me wanted to be there. And then I watched it from, you won't be able to see it on camera, but I watched it from the hallway. So I was kind of removed from everything going on.
Jeff Van Groningen style.
And I was standing there with my young fella, and we were watching. He was trying to figure out why I wasn't on the court, and I lasted about almost a quarter, and I had to get out of there because I was struggling. So it's definitely an interesting thing to go through and experience.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully you start feeling better for longer, really, really quickly. Wild day yesterday. I mentioned it off the top. Like you were with the fellas closing out your season together, but you no doubt kept an eye on proceedings. Came down to the very final possession. Unbelievable that Perth needed to win by 11 or more. They ended up winning by 12. If Dion hits the 3 ball in the corner in that final possession, Melbourne go through. In the end, Perth go through. Could you believe it came down to the narrowest of margins like that?
Believe it or not, I can, because I've actually been in that situation with Brisbane 2 of my first 3 years.
True.
When they announced the play-in, I know people had their thing 6 of 10 teams, but it was 4 of 8 originally anyway. So I was 6 of 10. I'm like 4 teams to miss out. And for years now in this league, anyone can beat anyone, whether you're last, whether you're 5th. It's just, that's how it's been. And it's just any night you can get done. And so when it went to the play-in, I always thought, especially for those few years with Brisbane, we found form late. If we got in, what happens? And so now you're starting to see that. And United, the classic story of they found form late, they just miss out.
Yep.
What happens if they get in?
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's one of those things of like, you're like, oh, someone just scraped in 6th. They're going to struggle. It's like, okay, what happens now? This team could beat anyone. And so my surprise wasn't there as much because I've been a part of it on the losing side of it both times. We got beat by percentage when we beat, I think it was percentage, and then the year after we beat Cairns by 36 or something. We had to win by a mozza, and then United roll out the next day and they win. So we were destroyed. But I just think it shows the kind of the competitiveness of the league. And now it adds an element of, when's the last time we had knockout games too?
Yeah, it was a while
One game you're done.
Yeah.
And so now we go to this another realm of like, okay, 5th versus 6th, roll in, you lose, you're done. And so I think just the element of it, the excitement of it is something different. And I think 6 teams for us as a league, it just adds that other element of like just spice, I guess, to it all.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of times, in the start of the season, teams lose a couple of games and then you'll always hear the line come out from the coaches' mouths as something along the lines of, it's okay, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I'm always thinking back to your Brisbane teams or that Scotty Hobson New Zealand team that was just roaring towards the playoffs at the end of the season but just missed out. They're another example of, well, who knows what they could have done had they got in there. And there's heaps more examples over the years, but you're right, it is so close that it's not a sprint, but I don't know, it's like a 400 meter or an 800 meter in some way, because if you do fall behind early, it can really come back to bite you like it has done Melbourne United this season.
It's almost, honestly, more like multiple sprints throughout the year, because it's just there's so many stretches where you go like that little stretch a couple of weeks ago, we won 3 games in a row. It was in the space of a week.
Mm.
We had a one good week. You know what I mean? Of like string and wins together. And then you play 6 games in 2.5 weeks, and so but then you'll go 3 weeks where you play game, game, game. So it's kind of like the season swings so many different ways. And obviously everyone says, oh, well, if you just win early, then you make the playoffs. But just so many things go on throughout a year. And if you even look at our year, we barely have anyone to the start of the season. And then we start to find a rhythm, and then there's a change. And there's just so many chops and changes, and injuries play such a part. So if your group can find a good rhythm for the whole season, happy days. You're laughing, obviously. But if you can find a rhythm at some point, and you have that stretch of, hey, we have 6 games the next 2 weeks. If you go 6-0 in that 2 weeks, you come out of it in a whole other place to what you went into it. And so with the league being so tight, it's just one of those things that it's hard to do. And I feel like I pray for the year. I hope I can get one where everything just goes to plan. There's no real injuries, and I'd love to be a part of one of those, that's for sure.
For sure. Well, there are 6 teams, and as a result, all their players that have that opportunity now, looking forward still this season. So let's zero in on these playing games. Thursday night. Can't really look beyond that. We can talk Sydney, New Zealand down the track. We don't know what that game is that's going to be the final one to get into to play against the Kings. But what we do know is on Thursday, Southeast Melbourne host Perth, and Cairns host the JackJumpers. Let's start with Southeast Melbourne and Perth, because that's going to be the first one, tipping off 6:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time. But what are your just kind of overarching umbrella thoughts about that matchup?
The first one I have is Southeast Melbourne haven't played for a long period of time. They missed this last round because of the schedule change with New Zealand. And so we played them off an 8-day break. I think it was 8-day break when we beat them down in Melbourne. And just coming off a break can be interesting, because you go a period of time of, you can train, but it's not the same. And as I said, sometimes when you're just filing through games, you just find a rhythm of playing. And so I look at it from the point of view of Southeast Melbourne have a lot of talent, and they're at home, which is a massive advantage. But coming off a break, do you get off to a slow start and then Perth find a rhythm? And Perth have clearly gone the route of, we're going to score more points than you, which I think is an interesting one, because a lot of teams don't have the nuts to really go that way with it. And so they're kind of really rolling that way of like, we're going to come out and try to score 130. Can you come with us? And so off a break, you always get the element of the first 2 minutes can become a massive hit to the guts because you haven't played for 10 days or whatever it is. And so I just look at that as, how does Southeast Melbourne come out of the gates, and will that dictate where the game goes from there?
It was interesting watching yesterday, man, because when everything was on the line, they sat down and guarded a little bit, the Wildcats. Corey Webster, he had his best defensive game of the season. Luke Travers was the Luke Travers, really at both ends of the floor and on the glass, that everyone's been hoping he'd be on a game-to-game basis this season. And they were communicating. Brady Manick and Tashawn Thomas, you could see them talking a bit more than they have all year. So it was interesting to see them kind of lift that up a little bit when everything was on the line, because it was desperately needed. It wasn't there on the Friday night against Cairns. The other thing I think that you'd have to be a little bit worried about if you're the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix or their fans is Cotton just went 2 of 20.
Which means he's due.
Yeah, so he could come out, like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he has like 15 in the first quarter and they get off to a flying start.
Well, the thing about Perth is they've got Bryce Cotton. Yeah, I mean, any game you roll into with a Bryce Cotton in a situation like this, you'd be pretty happy if you're John Rillie knowing you've got Bryce Cotton on the floor. And so I just, regardless of what he did last game, and obviously both of us think, well, hang on, he could come out and just go whack, 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 and look out. I just think having that guy on the floor, he's just proven over and over again how good he is in those situations. And him going 2 of 20 last game, do you really think he's rolling into this game caring about that? Not one iota. He'll be ready to go. And I think the biggest thing for me with Perth is, you never want to say it because you don't want to help him, but I think Travers is playing more in the 4 now. And I actually think that's where he is in the NBL. I think that's where he can be elite because he's fast and he can handle the ball. And we've seen teams in this league with your Zave Cooks and your Creakies and your Hogue when he goes to the 4 and those alike. When the 4-man can carry it, it really can dictate your offense and where you get to. And I think him going to that spot now, 4s are guarding him. He's shooting it better, which helps, but it frees up their offense. Now it's not on Bryce to bring up the ball every time or Corey, or they have to carry it all the time. He can just get it and go, and now we can play. And so it's really been an interesting one for me, actually seeing them use him there more and more than just playing him at the point or so on.
Yeah, he carried the ball all game last night.
Yeah.
I mean, Ty Webster played 10 minutes, and it was to Sean Thomas and either Brady Manick or Jesse Wagstaff, or was two of those 3 on the floor. And it was Luke advancing it, and then it was Cotton and Corey Webster on each of the wings, and it looked great. I mean, he was playmaking out of pick and roll. He was the Swiss Army knife on the floor. He was Xavier Cooks for Perth.
Well, because the other thing about that too is you got a lot of 4s and 5s. They're used to defending on balls as the screen defender,
Right.
So now when you start to put people in actions like that, now 4s have to navigate getting through screens. Do they switch it? All those things start to play out. And I think that's one thing you see Sydney do a lot of random screens with Zay because it's a hard one to defend as a big. Are you going over? Are you going under? You go under, he takes up space. And so I just think with a guy like Luke, as he's starting to figure it out and mature, he's got the skill set to be able to take advantage of that. And it's simple reads for him. Get downhill. He knows how to make extra pass and that. And now the fact as you start knocking down the 3 ball a little bit because people give it to him, we've done it.
Yeah.
I've left him at times. If you're going to beat us making 3s, but he's actually starting to knock them down over games now where it's like, do you give it to him? And now I've always been a believer, let's see if they'll make him when everything's on the line. But he's starting to make a few. So now you have to guard him. And I just think it really frees up teams when you have a guy like that and you use him in that space.
Yeah, that's what Sydney did yesterday. They well and truly gave him that shot, and he hesitated a little bit to begin with, even after he made one, and then he stopped doing that, and he just started making quick decisions, and he was knocking down triples, he was putting it on the floor, taking up that space. So he was absolutely outstanding. For the Phoenix, my understanding is Ron Brockhoff's going to play. Now, he may not be 100%, but it's an all-or-nothing game. He's going to be out there. What does all that kind of mean to you?
If I'm Perth, you go straight at him. I think you have to. You have to see how fit he is. But at the other end, the thing about, I guess, even like, it doesn't matter how someone's playing, how they're shooting it, if they're injured or not, you have to guard him, right? So I think for Southeast Melbourne, it gives you one of the best floor spaces in the league because no one's helping off Rowdy.
No.
You could stand him in a corner and someone is going to be close enough so he can't catch and shoot. Knowing Rowdy a long time, I would think if he's playing, he must feel like he can move pretty well. And that's really all it's going to dictate. It's not about what he can do. It's if I can move, I can have a go. And so for them, I think they need him. I think it gives them that genuine guy that, as you saw in the game he got hurt, can just go whack, whack, whack and blow open a game or keep you in a game. And so I think it'll be interesting how his health is, but I think for Southeast Melbourne, if you have him, you have to try.
The Phoenix are the best offensive rebounding team in the league, and Perth over the course of the season, not yesterday, Luke Travers in particular was really good in this regard, but over the course of the season, they've been the worst defensive rebounding team in the competition. And when they matched up a couple of weeks back, the Phoenix absolutely monstered them on the glass.
Yeah.
Alan Williams, Mitch Creek in particular, like basically it was the ball game, the fact that they dominated them on the glass. You've played against the Phoenix over the course of this season, Alan Williams, the brute that he is, and the way in which Creaky crashes the offensive glass. What can Perth do to try to overcome that massive problem?
Well, they're just persistent, right? Like they're both just workhorses on the glass. They get it, and they got a feel. They both have a great feel for it. And the other part is you get Dane and people like that coming in who also have a natural feel for going to the glass. And so it's not like it's just one or two. It's actually multiple guys to just have a feel and have that. They're just always around it. They're always around it. And I think the one thing when we played them was we kept them off it for majority of the game, and it allowed us to get out and go too at our own pace. And so that's the part with Southeast. If you can do a good enough job, now it's easy to say, oh, just keep them off the glass and yeah, you'll be fine. Now it's not that simple because there's a reason they're so good at it. They have guys that just get it. But if you can manage it and keep it at a lower rate than what it normally is, now you can go off it. And now with your guys, like if Ty Webster's healthy and your Bryce's and Luke rebounded, just get it and go and see what you've got in trans and how do they counter that now as they crash. I think you're not going to take them off the glass, but can you minimize it so that now you can actually go against the grain with them and get it and go?
I mentioned Alan Williams in particular. Like in that matchup, he had 27 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists. They just played through him in the block, short rolls. He had the floater going, and then just pounding away at Tashawn Thomas. And then you've also got, Brady Manick has been great over the course of this back end of the season. He's been shooting the heck out of the ball, and he really battled yesterday on the glass and defensively. But he's a pick-on guy. And Mitch Creek, they will rest assured they will be going at Creaky, and he will be given the direction to put your head down and try to go at Brady Manick. For you, is that the key element of the ball game from a Perth perspective? How those bigs handle Williams and Creek, both defensively but also on the glass?
Oh yeah, I think first of all, does Williams have one of the best big floaters we've seen in maybe ever?
It's not.
He's touch. He's elite. I remember the first time we played him, I was like, nah, he's actually really making that. Like, that's his shot.
Yeah, I chatted to him the other week about it, and he said he developed it. He only just started doing it in the NBA. So we look at it and be like, man, what a tool he has there. And he was like, I'm in practice with the Phoenix Suns, and these guys are so tall and athletic, and I just had to find a way to get it up and over the top. And he mentioned the one he hit against you from the free throw line, saying DJ Mitchell was like, dude, you just hit that from the free throw line.
Mate, it looks nice too. Like it comes off with the beautiful height. But I think if I speak on our experience to your question, I think Creaky's the one, man. Creaky's done such an excellent job, like for a number of years now. But he's elite fitness. He's at a great space with what he's playing and what he's trying to do, and he's really just any matchup he feels like he's got you, he's going at you. And I think going back to the game we did beat them, it was the best job we did on Creaky. I think he might have even still had 20, maybe. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't the games earlier. He killed us. I think he went at us. He targeted people. He got to his spots. He got free throws. And then the next game, we actually did a great job in the second half. I don't remember him really shooting much in the second half. And then late in the game when it was kind of some big possessions, he took 2 threes. But I said to someone, I think that's the first 2 threes he took for the game. And maybe the first shot he'd taken in the fourth quarter. Mm. And it's hard for, I think, him. He's not a natural catch and shoot guy. But when Creaky's rolling, he can do a bit of everything. Mm. And so I think if you can minimize his impact and at least make him feel like he's not touching it all the time and try and take him out of his space, once again, easier said than done, and it's a collective effort, then it gives Perth the best chance. But if Creaky's going, Southeast Melbourne are going, and now you're dealing with a different beast. And now Williams and all those guys can just feed off it because you've got to overhelp. Now he's crashing the glass, and now it's just a steamroll effect of everything coming off the back of Creaky. And that's the reason why he's in that MVP conversation.
And then on the flip side, down that other end, the Phoenix going to have to keep control of this unbelievably dangerous Perth offense with Bryce and Corey Webster. Ty Webster's going to be a little bit more healthy coming in. Luke Travers confident, and Brady Manick and Tashawn Thomas able to do what they can do. So, man, it's going to be a fun game to watch. With all of that considered, where do you sort of lean as you look towards that game and you think who might advance and who might finish their season?
My gut feel is it's going to be a straight shootout. It's going to be a high score and high flowing game. I just feel like they're both going to just trade buckets. You normally say the home team, but this year there's been that feel of away teams are getting stuff done too. I feel like no matter which way you pick, you could look silly because either team could come out and just go whack, 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 and it's over. But I
Yeah.
I have this feeling like that break that Southeast Melbourne have isn't a benefit. I know it helps people get healthy, but
Mm.
I just feel like Perth rolling in. They won the other night. Get their tails up. Bryce needs to have a good game. You trust him in that situation. I just can't help but feel like they might be able to jump them early, and then it becomes how much effort does Southeast have to use to get back in the game. But you have to Perth with Bryce Cotton. You have to give it the slight edge to, but you could look very silly saying that. There's no doubt.
Hey, welcome to my world. I look silly on the
Exactly.
regular in this space. Don't worry about it. All right. So as soon as that one wraps up, whether it's Perth or Southeast Melbourne that get the win, we're going to go to far North Queensland. The Taipans and that Cairns Convention Centre is going to be rocking, and they're going to be ready to step out against the JackJumpers, and both teams going to be missing a really key piece. Keanu Pender, who's going to be an all-league guy this season for the Taipans, is going to be sitting on the sidelines. And Josh Majette, who suffered a broken cheekbone and a fractured eye socket in that win that they got on the weekend to lock themselves into the top four.
What stage of that game did he get hit in? I didn't see it.
If I remember correctly, and someone will correct me, no doubt, on social media when they listen or watch, I'm pretty sure they had a pretty healthy advantage. And in hindsight, Captain Hindsight would say he could have potentially not been on the floor at that point.
Okay, so it was later in the game. Yeah, okay. I was interested just because I was talking yesterday. I think I was talking when we saw Majette was going to be out, and I don't know how it goes for Tassie. I feel like part of me feels it could go. It sounds like I'm double dipping, but part of me feels like it could go horribly wrong, or it could just work out that they just are really, really good because of it, and everything's through Doyle, and they just roll. I don't know. I feel like it's going to go either way for some reason. I feel like they're going to be excellent, or it could go south for him quick, and it could get weird because he controls everything they do. He carries the ball. Who now fills that role for him? Do they go kind of more defensive and everything's through Doyle, but it puts a lot on him with the Cairns outfit? So that Majette one for me, not having really seen him play without him, I'm really interested to see how that goes.
Yeah. So that's going to be a lot of Sean McDonald running the one. There's going to be maybe a little bit of Jared Weeks, and I think you're right. It's going to be a lot of Milton Doyle, advancing the ball and handling the rock and playing out of pick and roll. I think, and it's interesting, we talked about that chat I had with Alan Williams recently, and I asked him, who's really impressed you over the course of your first season in the NBL? And he said the JackJumpers, and he said they have a system where guys can just come in and out of the game, or guys can miss, and it's like a plug and play system in terms of the buy-in, the culture, how well drilled they are. Like, they didn't have Rashad Kelly, who's a best six-man candidate and a real impact guy on the weekend, and they didn't miss a beat. They didn't miss a beat in that regard. Jack McVeigh and Krislovic, Besto stepped in and threw his body around. So that's going to be fascinating because whether they're able to actually action that in this situation, or, as I suspect, I think that the level of impact that Majette has with that group, how important he is in terms of being the Scott Roth extension on the floor. We talk about their ability to control tempo all the time, and he's an absolute master at it. I think his impact on that team often goes a little underappreciated.
Yeah, it's one of those things, right, where I guess people in this league, I guess sometimes I cop it, they just see you needing the point guard to be this kind of do-everything guy, be in the MVP conversations, where I feel like some groups just need a guy to kind of do what he does, just get people the ball, fill in spots where he needs to, and he kind of just goes about his business week in, week out. No one really talks about it, but whilst he's doing that, everyone else around him is getting better. Those people are these days very few and far between, I think, in those little roles where it's really appreciated, as you said, and I think he does a good job with that team. And what's really probably helped is, for last year he had an Adams, this year he's got a Doyle. And so when you've got that guy alongside you, it's a compliment because you know where to get them the ball, and you know they're just going to get it done. And so I think as I'm saying, I feel like they're either going to really miss him and it could go horribly wrong for him up there, or there's just going to be that weird thing where it all works out and the way they play and Doyle goes crazy and then everyone else feels a little role and they end up being excellent. It's a hard one. I struggle to see them being even ground with it. I just feel like it could go one or two ways and it'll be almost to the extreme side of it.
All right, so on the flip side, the Taipans and them getting it done without Keanu Pinder. Now, we both know how great Pinder's been over this season when he's been healthy. But the numbers, they don't lie. Like, the team has a better winning percentage without him on the floor. How do you wrap your head around that?
You kind of can't, right? Because Keanu's been excellent. I think the way he's played, the way he's gone after it, he's got a confidence. Obviously, 40 does a great job of him. Like, I think 40 understands him and knows sometimes it's about guys that are kind of a bit different, the way they think and things like that. It's just about understanding who they are and what kind of gets them going. And I think 40 must know that with Keanu, and it's really blossomed this year. And they play a style that suits him. And I don't think there's really an explanation because you can't tell me that they're better without him, but their record is excellent. They play well. And I think they've got some guys, as you just spoke about, Tassie, who they plug those holes really well so they can manage it. And I think they play a bit different without Keanu. They can really spread the floor with Wardenberg, and it pulls people out. It makes bigs have to defend them out, and then it allows McCall and Hogue to kind of really get in there and play off that, and allows Scott, another probably underappreciated guy, he just gets things moving. And so it's kind of an interesting dynamic because you wouldn't think they'd be better without him, but as you said, their record says they are.
Yeah. No, I think you're bang on, though, about the lane because Keanu is not like an Alan Williams who just parks himself down there, but he is constantly looking to roll down through the lane. Early ball screens in transition, handoffs, and he's rolling, looking for the lob time and time again. But without him, Wardenberg's picking and popping a little bit more. And the lane, especially for Tajir McCall, who he becomes a real offensive weapon when Keanu's not there because he's got space to penetrate into. And the other thing they do without Keanu is they use Tajir McCall as a screener and a short roll playmaker, which has worked pretty well for him.
That's what we spoke about when we actually played him. I don't even remember when it was now, but we spoke about how he basically plays the four, and he's obviously, without knowing him, he seems to really understand it. He's kind of their engine. He kind of gets them all going and ticking, and from what I have heard, it's an everyday thing from him. It's not just games, and so I think the fact he is the way he's defensively, he's a pest, he's up and in, he's in lanes, and then offensively now, he's screening and rolling, and because he's a guard, he's making plays off that. A bit like you even said about Travers in the four spot. He's able to get off and make plays, and now, are you defending him with a four, or are you defending him with a guard? Are you defending him with a five? Because you're not saying, well, we don't care about him shooting, but however you're defending, now you've got guards that are in on balls. It's a different element to guard, right? It's not a natural thing. And so when you've got guys like Bull and Hogue and Wardenberg and all them space in the floor, Scott, it's a different dynamic which people have to deal with. And then the other part of that is that they're going. And so with a guy like McCall coming downhill at people in trans, he's just putting pressure on the ring. And so it's just a different dynamic with him there than probably what everyone's really used to, and he does that role very well.
What do the Jack Jumpers do about DJ Hogue? Because in big moments, he has been enormous for that team.
I feel like he doesn't miss down the stretch, especially if it's like 30 seconds left and he shoots a three. It's an interesting one because he's too big for like little guards, and he's probably too quick and spreads bigger guys. But you could maybe go with like a Kelly or someone and try and be physical, climb up and in. Can a Kenyon climb up and into him when he carries the ball and make him have to work, especially because they do put in his hands to carry. So it's kind of one of those things. Can a Kenny climb up into him full court and make him have to work rather than just get it to where he wants to and now play out of it? I think you've got to give him different looks. And then you've probably at the other end, he does a great job actually defensively. I think some people try and knock him for his D, but he seems to actually he's actually a good shot blocker, which helps. But he seems to defend stuff pretty well. But can you put him in stuff at the other end and make him defend? So he's got to worry about the other end as well, not just worry about playing offense. But he's shown to be tough, and he has a straight wet ball, so you've got to worry about that wherever he is. And it's the same thing as like a Rowdy. I mean, obviously he's healthy, but wherever he is, you're worried about him catching and shooting, whether it's in trans, whether it's in half court. No one wants to leave him. And so just having that guy out there, you can kind of use him as a decoy too, and it allows guys like McCall get downhill. And so it's an interesting one.
The last question on this one is a stylistic one, the battle of these two styles, because I look at it and I go, you know what, this JackJumpers team is built for the playoffs, the way they play. I've been saying over the course of the season, they're the best team in the league at executing in crunch time. Because as the game slows down and it becomes how well you execute at both ends of the floor, particularly in the half court, in the final big minutes of games, they've been playing that way since the opening tip. And they've been doing it game after game, so they don't have to change their style. And then the question about the Taipans has been this free-flowing green light system where they lead the league in three-point attempts. And whilst they're not, they're not a long way off the bottom for three-point percentage, they're super streaky and can get really hot and go on big runs. And the question is, well, does that stand up? Does that stand up in the bump and grind of the postseason? It's the postseason now in this game on Thursday night. How do you think that battle of styles plays out in this environment?
Well, we're about to find out. So I think the other element to it is too, it's not a knockout game. The team will get a second chance, but it's a one-off. It's not a 3-game series. Right. So the kids could come out and get cooking at home, and it's whack, 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 and now it becomes up and down, and now Tassie are out of their comfort zone of wanting to play at their own tempo. But if Tassie can really get him in the grind of it, then you'll start to see that play out where it's like, okay, can Cairns sit down and defend in the half court, and then can they still offensively execute well enough to get it done? But I think the one thing Cairns have done better this year than probably previous years is I think they know who they are this year. They're not second-guessing who they are. They know that's how they want to play, and they've got the guys to get it done now. Like, they've actually got the guys to having guys like Hogue and people like that, it just enables them to play that way. And then you bring in a guy like Wardenberg, like even against us in Brisbane, in Cairns the other night, Majuk Deng hasn't probably been doing a whole heap, but he comes in the last quarter, he makes 3 threes, breaks the game open. And he's been doing that for a long time. But you kind of forget about guys like that because you're so worried about other people, where prior years, Juk's starting, so you're really worried about what Juk's doing, especially at the start of game because he's in the game, where now he's kind of coming in periodically and it's, oh, hang on a second, Juk's in now. Oh, what are we doing with him? And so I think they really have a flow with what they're doing, and 40's got them playing with so much confidence that I don't think it matters that it's a playoff game. I think they're going to play the same way, and they're going to play with confidence. And can Tassie without Majet play at the tempo they want to do and control the pace? Can McDonald bring the ball up and get him to what they want to get into? Can Weeksy do it? We know Weeksy's been doing it, but can Weeksy do it for the full 25 minutes if he's got to play 25 minutes? Right. Do they play Isaac? Do they go Steindl in the 2 and they put Doyle at the 1? How are they going to go about it, I think, is the interesting one. And that's why I'm interested how it plays out, because I think they might do some different things, and it could be amazing for them, or it could be, hang on a second, we've lost our guy that kind of keeps everything ticking over when we're in that grind of it all.
Yeah. My thought about the Taipans also is they play so loose and free offensively because they guard. And this, I think, has kind of slipped a little under the radar in the narrative around this team over the course of the season. Like, they ended the regular season second in defensive efficiency, right there behind New Zealand and right there just a nose in front of Sydney. And those 3 teams have been outstanding at the defensive end of the floor. But everyone's attention gets taken with Cairns to the 3-point shooting, but the job that Bull Kual and Tajir McCall and Sam Wardenberg, for a first-year pro, these guys are doing at the defensive end. Like, 40 has that team really guarding. They're long and athletic and disruptive. Yeah. And it gives them so much margin for error at the other end. And that's why I've got to a point now where I'm actually not concerned that their style will translate to the postseason, because what they do at that end of the floor.
Yeah, they make it a grind. I think I've spoken about it, the last 2 years, it's probably gone a bit back to my first 4 or 5 years, where you're allowed to hold and you're allowed to climb up and in and grab. And I think if you look at some of those teams that have really adjusted well to it, they're one of them. They've got guys. The biggest thing that you said just then is they've got length and they've got athletes, and they've got people that enable them to do that as well. And so they can play different ways defensively, but they get up, they hold, they make it a physical contest, and they do the classic, are the refs going to call a foul every possession? Let's see. And so it kind of is. And 3 years ago, they would have. And you would have been in foul trouble, and now you're going, hang on, get your hands out. We can't keep doing this way. But at the moment, the way that it's been officiated, you're allowed to do it and see what we can get away with, and let's test it out. And we're going to do it every possession, so it's the same way every possession. So they can't say, oh, you held on this possession. We're just going to hold every possession and get up and in and make it a grind. And some teams have really done a good job of it, and they're one of it. And they make it tough. They get up and in, and they do all those things. And then off the back of that, as we spoke about, they've got good length and size at those certain spots that even without a Pinder, they're able to cover the glass and they're able to cover rebounds, and then they just get it and go. And now you're on your heels. And so I think they've done a very good job of it. And I think they've got the right personnel to play that way too.
I think that's a great call about the physicality, and it's the thing I'll be watching right from the very top of the game, because I expect it's Bull Qual that goes to Milton Doyle. You know, they've got other guys that they can send there. So. Jim McCall can do that as well. But Bull Qual is probably the lead guy in that physicality sense, in terms of hands-on and making it tough. And there have been a couple of games this season where the refs right from the very top were like, bam, Bull, you can't defend like that. And he's picked up early fouls. He fouled out in 11 minutes in a game in Melbourne in Melbourne one time this season, where he just, like, every time he went near the play, he picked up a foul. And he had similar issues in one of their most recent games as well. So how the officials deal with him guarding Milton Doyle early, I think, is going to be important.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing that, as a player, I've been kind of frustrated, confused with, because I think it's actually a hard way to officiate. What is allowed to grab? Why are you allowed to grab in this spot but not in this spot? What dictates? Because if I'm trying to cut and you hold him in, that's not, I guess, affecting the offense. I'm like, well, it is, because I'm trying to get there and he's holding on to me. And I think Ball's done a great job of, offensively, he does his thing for them, and he's done a great job, and he's really evolved. But he's a strong guy, and he climbs up and in. I think a prime example of that was, I don't know if you remember, Tyler Johnson, the start of the second half when we played him a week ago, whenever it was, gets the ball, they call a foul on him 3 seconds into the half, hands on. That next possession, he does the exact same thing, but it's a no call now. And so, as a player, I sit there and go, what's the difference?
Right.
But for some reason, there is a difference. And to your point is, I guess at times too, he'd go into that game and go, well, why is it now a foul? But in that game, it's not a foul. And so I think for him, he's not going to change the way he plays. He does a great job of it. And it's probably, as you said, it's actually been McCall's their barometer, but he very much starts it for him, and he comes out that way. And then what you have seen, which we've experienced, is off the back of that, he'll go whack, whack, whack and hit 2 threes early on, and it really opens up the game for him. And now he's cooking, and then they all flow on. So I think he'll go to Doyle early for sure.
Well, 2 really intriguing matchups. Before I nearly let you off the hook there. Who do you lean there? Cairns and Tassie when all's said and done?
I think Cairns at home. I think the place will be pumping. I think they're playing a good style of basketball. They almost were second. I feel like they'll get that win, and then it'll be rocking in Tassie when they play Perth, whenever that is after that.
Okay, there you go. You've
Unless
mapped it out. There's your bracket.
Southeast might make me look silly, and Creek will have 35, and he'll message me about it. But
if you go 0-2 on Thursday night, that would be hilarious for me. Thanks for jumping on, man.
Highly likely.
Yeah, it is.
It's highly likely.
It could go any direction. Hey, awesome to chat, man. Love speaking hoops with you. We usually catch up at this time of year at the awards night and have a bit of a catch up. Not the last couple of years with COVID, but I dare say you're not going to be there tomorrow night. You're lying low right now.
I'll come down, but it'll be a pretty quiet night. I'm hoping my guy Tyler gets 6th man of the year. I think
Okay.
he's been incredible for the league and one of the best imports I've been around. Not even the best, just the best blokes. He's a legend. I absolutely love him. And so the chance he wins it and I'm not there, I'd be pretty disappointed. So no, I'm hoping to make it down tomorrow night.
All right, cool. All right, well, I'll see you tomorrow night at Crown. But in the meantime, thanks heaps for the chat, man. Appreciate it.